Thank you for joining CU Bands and Fans podcast. Our podcast is brought to you by Homegrown KIO. Homegrown KIO is on Sunday nights at 7 p.m. It is a stellar show featuring the great songs that have come from bands originating in Champaign-Urbana. Listen at 107.9 on your FM dial, at 1079wkio.com, or ask Alexa to play WKIO. Hello, welcome to CU Bands and Fans podcast, where musicians tell their story. My co-host is with me this evening, Zach Widdop. How are you doing, Zach?
Pretty good. Hi, everyone.
And we want to welcome our special guest, Billy Galt. We have a lot to talk about. Because Billy has had, he's got a lot of history. He's recently been up to a lot of amazing music. He went on a Norway tour. He's got a recent recording out. And he's got a reunion that we want to discuss. So we're going to get right to it. How are you doing, Billy?
Very well. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Good. Let's begin. I wanted to begin with, we were talking about this interview that you did with the News Gazette called In Studio. And the question was asked, haven't you backed up some big names? Question mark. You said, I backed some blues guys. Homesick James, who lived to be around 100 in Chicago. I played with Sonny Boy Williamson Jr. in a street band in Chicago. In the winter, we'd play in Memphis, New Orleans, LA, Houston, San Francisco. I was living in my old Suburban at that time. We just lived on the street. It was a lot of fun. Let's elaborate on that.
Yeah, it was crazy. That was about the end of the 80s, I think around 88, 89, and 90. I was with it for about a year and a half, maybe a year and 8 months or so. And yeah, it was really exciting. We traveled all over and played all the big cities. We'd follow a lot of the big festivals. Like in our main city was Chicago. We'd base up there in the summer, and we'd play out on State Street by right down in the Loop at around Marshall Fields during the day. And then on the weekends, we play around Buckingham Fountain, at Buckingham Fountain. But we'd also play the Blues Fest and the Taste of Chicago at the time they had, and the Jazz Fest. And we were never actually featured, but we would just set up on the outskirts, the street players would. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. There, we'd make a lot of money too. The money was really better on the street than it was in the clubs at the time, anyway. And yeah, so we had a great time. And
I have a little story about Homesick James. He played at Ruby Gulch once, and I went into the restroom, and I ran into him in the restroom, and he pulls this little stub of a cigar like that long out of his pocket, and he goes, "Look what I found."
he found
I just about died laughing.
That's good. Yeah, we played a gig with him up in Highland Park one time, and it was like a ritzy section of Chicago. We went and picked him up and went up there, and it was like a ritzy racket club, and it was for, these young teenagers mainly, these rich teenage kids. And, we seemed really out of place, and it was really strange. And our little band that was backing him, he said, "Well, you guys go up there and play for a while, and I'll come out in a while," So we played, and now introducing the star of the show, Homesick James, but he'd never come out, So we played and played and played, and finally he had to drink a whole bottle of fifth of Southern Comfort, and then he finally did come out, and then he played for about 2 or 3 hours straight, and yeah, it was pretty funny though, because it was like, just it was a strange mix, and mostly teenage kids that didn't really probably get it, you wouldn't think, but
Right. Exactly.
one of those strange mixes there.
Do you remember how old you were when you were doing all this?
Well, yeah, I mean, when I played with Homesick James, I was actually younger than when I went out and actually played on the street as a whole there, but I was only like early 20s, 22, 23, maybe at the most. When I actually went out and stayed on the street for a while, I was late 20s, 27, 28, I think, something in there. Yeah.
Oh,
But
and did you literally live in your Suburban?
yeah, when we did the street thing, my street partner had an old bus, and then I had my old Suburban, and we just park out on the street. You know, it's funny. You wouldn't, you know, I'd probably be, but at the time we weren't too concerned and never had any trouble. And it was pretty cool because we get embraced by a whole different segments of society. You know, the rich folks would come down on their lunch break or something all in suits, but then we'd have the, you know, homeless folks, and everybody would be mixing around, and just
Yeah.
kind of a real togetherness sort of thing. And it was pretty cool, really. And the best thing I did was play up on Maxwell Street, the famed open market up there in Chicago. And that was way back in the early 80s. And it was just really soulful. I'm sure you guys have heard of Maxwell Street, of course. And it was where all the great blues players like Muddy Waters and stuff came up when they
Wow.
first came up from the South and played. And so, yeah, it was great. I love doing the street stuff. The Maxwell Street, you'd start like 7 in the morning and play all day on a hot summer day, and make about $14.12 at the end of the day or something. But just the vibe of it was so remarkable. We'd be playing a gig in Champaign at House of Chin or somewhere, and load out at 2 or 3 in the morning and drive all the way up to Chicago and start playing at 7 in the morning. And that was for young people, it seemed like.
Yeah, I was going to say, can you imagine doing that now?
Not really, no.
But you'd probably do it. It's like,
Yeah,
what?
I'd probably do it. Yeah, because it was great.
How did you get? I mean, how did that even begin to where you ended up being in Chicago and
Well, I had, when I first started playing, I was playing. The money was in the honky tonk, so I played in a lot of honky tonk bars and country bands. But on the side, I'd play in blues things. They had a little circuit of blues clubs in Champaign at the time, around the early '80s. Nature, beloved Nature's Table, of course. And then they had on First Street, they had Buddies and Jackson Ribs, and Nicky's was up on where that pawn shop is on University, and those were all black clubs and stuff. A lot of times I was the only Caucasian dude in there, in the band or in the club, but it was always really cool, and learned a lot. And that's what I really loved to do. And through that, I met, one of my old friends, Bruce Brooks, is who kind of got me doing a lot of that street stuff. He's deceased now, kind of came to a bad end, but
is that Jared's dad?
That's yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Jaden's dad. And I've known Jaden since he was a little kid. And
Jaden Brooks.
Yeah, Jaden. And so he was kind of my connection. And so yeah. But it was a great time. We had a lot of fun doing that. Made a lot of money too. I used to bring home big bales of cash, and my kids all thought we were rich. They were mostly $1 bills, but they looked like big hay bales. And then, so, but we did make pretty good money, and it was a lot of fun.
And have you always been, let me back up before I ask that question. Did you choose blues, or did blues choose you?
Well, no, I mean, I was kind of a late bloomer. I didn't start playing until I was like 19. My dear departed sister Becky got me a bass guitar and a little amp on my 19th birthday, and kind of took it from there. But my sisters were quite a bit older than I am. My older sister Susie, who's still with us, she left home pretty early on and left a lot of her albums, and she had a lot of hippie albums, Jefferson Airplane and Cream and stuff like that. And Jimi Hendrix. It was all cool. But then she also had a couple weird albums like Hound Dog Taylor and BB King, which were kind of out of place, and for the other stuff. And I really love that stuff, and then I'm a huge Allman Brother fan, as you guys know. And so I was totally into them. I followed a lot of their roots back to a lot of the bands they covered, which were old time blues guys. And so no, I always loved the blues, and feel real fortunate to actually get to be being one of my main things I do now. So over the years, and yeah,
and you're a full-time musician.
yeah, full time. That's right.
And you are, so I mean, because you gig a lot.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, pretty constantly.
oh, and then okay, so your band is the Blue Deacons.
The Blues Deacons is my band. Yeah,
Blue
yeah.
Okay.
And we've been around a long time now, over 30 years. And for a while, it was kind of almost a side project when the Keith Harden band was playing so much. But then when the Keith Harden band started phasing out, it became my main focus. And so, yeah, we've had a couple CDs before the new CD. What are we waiting for? We got just out now. But 17 original songs, all original, but
you have 17 on
17 songs we squeezed on that thing.
Wow. Okay, well, Mark 1 sold for me.
Yeah, thank you.
And you know what? I should have bought one when I seen you at Winston's.
Oh yeah, that was good. Yeah, I was glad to see a pretty good crowd there. I didn't know what to expect in Sydney.
Was that your first time at Winston's?
Well, I had played there solo before. To not much fanfare. It was like during the holidays, and there weren't many people, but it was a pretty good crowd for the Blues Deacons, as you saw. It was
a fun crowd. I like Winston's a lot.
Yeah, it's very cool. The guy Jeff that runs it, and then there's another partner. I can't think of his name, but they're real nice. Yeah,
yeah, they're really kind. They treat you very well. And that's
they sure do.
Important. So yeah, I should have purchased one then. Sorry, I didn't. But I will get one, definitely. And I would like it signed if you don't mind.
Oh, certainly.
Okay, and then so there's 3 of you in the Blue Deacons. And sometimes do you like change out? And
well, the core band is Josh Quirk on drums, our old buddy Josh Quirk that you guys know well from a million different bands over the years, and I've played with him for years and years. And then Bo Renshaw, who likes to go by his stage name Blind Dog, is the bass player, and he's been with the Blues Deacons over 20 years now, unbelievably. But so that's the core band. But then we'll sometimes when we play especially when we play at Rose Bowl, we usually get Jesse Brown to play with us if he's available, just to kind of flesh out things a little bit, flesh out the sound a little bit. Jesse does a great job. Jesse played on the CD, played on more than half the songs on the CD. We always enjoy having him on the gig, and recently Michael Peliquin's been coming out. He played on the CD as well, a few songs.
He went back into town, didn't he?
Yeah, he's back into town from San Francisco. He'd spent a long stint out there. And now he's back and been coming in and sitting in with some of the bands around the area. And he's really good, a great sax player, a great harmonica player. So he adds a lot also. And he was out Saturday, at Pippa's. We had a nice crowd there, and he came out and sat in with us there. So, we'll have friends come out and play with us or sit in sometimes. And then, of course, the big news was the Blues Deacons joined with Andy Duncanson, the fabulous singer, as we all know, from Kilbourne Alley, and cobbled together the Norway tour just last month.
So let's well, first of all, where did you record the CD?
I want to make sure I mention that at our good friend Dan Henry's studio right here in Monticello. Made it really easy for me. It was he's not an old local guy, but he's lived here for some years now, and he's got a wonderful studio. And he's been recording several bands over there. And I highly recommend his services. Dan Henry, he plays with Bruiser and the Impalas, a fine bass player he is, and Dan is also. And he's got a great studio, and he produced it and recorded it and everything. And he's really good and really patient and encouraging. So it worked out really well.
How long did you?
Once upon a time.
I'm sorry.
Once upon a time, Grizz was in the Blues Deacons, wasn't he?
Yeah, I was going to mention the original band included. We were like almost a jug band, an acoustic band, which was Grizz, the great Grizz, and our good buddy, and then John Pennell also from Alison Krauss fame, and the great writer from lives down in Nashville. We're good old buddies. So it was John Pennell, Grizz, and then a guy who doesn't live around here anymore named John Carney. And then eventually Danny Deckard joined the band on drums, and we became more of an electric band. And, and then over the years, players came through. Doc LaCourse was in the band for a while.
Wow.
So some great players have been in the band, and a lot of good drummers. Andy Burnett still plays with us from time to time. And, Ricky Cummings had played with us, and another good player from around here, Chris Smith, is more, he recently had played with us, and, litany of drummers. Of course, Ed O'Hara, our good buddy Ed O'Hara, who found a lot of joy playing with Kilbourne Alley, and he played with us and was on our second CD. And so, yeah, a lot of, like a lot of bands that have been together a long time.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Al Chapman was the bass player for many years, my good buddy Al. And so, yeah, a lot of who's who of the blues scene and the music scene, and all great friends still to this day. And so, yeah.
Cheers to 30 years of being.
It doesn't seem like it's been that long, but
yeah, that's really saying something for a band to last that long and to still be going strong and recording music.
Yeah, things are going pretty well these days. We're playing quite a bit, so it's always been more of a struggle to be a blues band, as opposed to like a mainstream tribute band or or top 40 band or something. But it's not too bad of a scene for the blues these days, so that's great for me.
I remember once after the Blues Brews and Barbecue thing they would have in downtown Champaign. You played it. I think you played at Memphis. Deacons played at Memphis on Main that night afterwards.
Yeah, kind of an after party. Yeah,
and there were people that came in there, and I heard one of them say, "This is where the real blues is happening."
That's good to hear. Yeah. No, yeah, there's some stuff on YouTube from that show that was pretty good. And that's what we used to get when we were playing on the street sometimes, because we were playing like really low down blues, and we'd be at these blues festivals, and sometimes, not always, but a lot of times people would be like, yeah, this is the real kind of blues we wanted to hear, because it was like really old timey, just raw blues as opposed to kind of the more uptown stuff. So that's what we're like.
So there is a difference in blues is because I don't know. That's why I'm asking this question. So is blues music have different, let's say like jazz has there's certain kind of jazz, and then there's this kind of jazz. Is it like that with blues?
Yeah, exactly. I think so. I mean, it's just like a lot of people argue about, is the new country better than the old country and stuff. And I think there's subgenres within the blues too. I personally like the more raw type blues, not necessarily old blues. There's bands around that are playing kind of raw, blues that are modern, but and that's my favorite kind, as opposed to the more pyrotechnic, high end speed, almost rock blues and stuff. So I like the old raw blues, Hound Dog Taylor and Magic Slim and things like that. Sun Seals, I saw Sun Seals many times. I got to open up for Magic Slim several times, and he was a real fun old character. I always wanted to see, never got to see Hound Dog Taylor, but he's one of my favorites, like say. And got to play a gig with Lazy Lester, an old guy from down south, more associated with Louisiana. We put a band together and played with him several years ago in Bloomington festival. And so, yeah, that's my favorite kind of stuff. Yeah, it does just seems more raw and primitive and authentic to me somehow, just always stirred me. So, whatever people like, some people like different kinds of stuff. So, but you're right though. Within the blues community, it's a little bit not splintered, but just like in the country stuff, where a lot of people don't like the new country, but they like the old country, and some people like both. And so, yeah, it's a mix,
Cool. Very cool. All right. So then you put this tour. How did this tour come about, and how did that go? And you just did this in October, right?
Yeah, we left on the 17th of October and got home the 30th. So we were there about 2 weeks. And a lot of the blues community's thick as thieves, and I know Andy really well. I've subbed in on bass and guitar with Kilbourne Alley Blues Band quite a few times over the years. So Andy's a good friend, but Josh Quirk, the drummer. He kind of cobbled it all together because he'd been over there with Andy. If the last few times Andy's been over there, Andy's a big name over there, and rightfully so, as we know. He's one of the top blues singers in the world and stuff, and so he's got a reputation over there, and he's been overseas, I think a dozen times now anyway. And but Josh was the kind, since Josh had played with Andy and that, and then Josh is kind of the main Blues Deacons guy, he kind of cobbled it all together, and just happens that Andy's got a whole new string of wonderful new original material himself that he recorded with some great musicians out in California. So he had a whole new CD worth of more than a CD worth almost of new material that he wasn't really doing with his other projects. He's got Kilbourne Alley, and he's got the excellent Dig 3. That's those guys are really great and stuff, and they have a new CD that's wonderful. But these songs were more kind of a little bit different thing, and he wanted to. So we did those, and worked on them a little bit. Had some rehearsals and played a couple pop-up gigs before we went over. But it was all pretty fresh and pretty raw, but we had it together pretty well. And we flew over. The flight was tough for me. 9 hours on a big jet. All squished up. You'd think on those big jets you'd have more room, but man, you're almost like in a fetal position for 9 hours there. So that's tough. But anyway, once we got over there, we went on a blues cruise for a couple of days. Went on a big ship that went between Oslo and then Germany in one of those big channels or something. And that was all cool. But the second night, the seas got real choppy, and there were these big waves, and the boat was, rocking and rolling all over the place. So, yeah, it was crazy. But
that is.
But then we played some gigs around Oslo and for about a week or so. And then the coolest part, probably the whole thing, was we flew off to this island way north of Norway called Svalbard. And it was north of like Iceland and Greenland, way up into the Arctic Circle. And we played this strange little blues fest called Dark Season Blues Fest, and it happened to be the 20th anniversary of it, and it was wonderful. We played up there, and it was this big frozen island, with these big mountains that were all ice and snow, and so yeah, it was great. But
Wow.
Then the flight home was tough. We got into some really bad turbulence over Greenland, and and so that was tough on me because I hadn't flown much. So I was like, man, is this normal or are we going down? So
I experienced that flying into New York once.
Oh man, it was awful. It was like being on a roller coaster. Yeah, but anyway,
Yeah.
besides the travel like that, it was all positive, and I thought the band sounded really good, especially by the end. We were really tight by then, and I was pretty happy with my performance on it. And you always think you could do better, but and we are going to play some more gigs with that lineup. We have. We're going to play, I think the next one is at this place called Bender's in Auburn. They've been having some blues on Wednesdays. We're going to be there at the last Wednesday of the year. So that'll be the Blues Deacons, including Andy. And then we are going to play at the Rose Bowl on the first Saturday of the year with that lineup. So, we're going to try to keep things going, and maybe something else will happen down the line with that. So, yeah, it was really exciting. And I kind of wondered if I was at the age where, all my exciting traveled years were behind me, but who knows,
Speaking of tours, this goes way back. You were in a band once called Night Train.
Yeah, Night Train Express. Yeah.
Night Train Express. You did a famous, or should I say infamous, tour of Canada.
Right. I'd say infamous. I've been on a couple infamous tours up there. Who
all was in that band?
Well, it was all names we'd know. I mean, it was Josh on drums, Josh Quirk again, our old buddy, and Dave Cooper, another old buddy from the area, a fine player. And they were just kids at the time. I was only like 26 or something, and those guys were only like barely 21 or something, and and then the great Dave Easley was in that band too. So, so yeah, we went on a wing and a prayer tour up there for a couple months almost, and then the the band before that was the Throbbers. I went up there with the Throbbers in the mid '80s, and that was George Boyle. That is a fine drummer. He lives in Bloomington now. That I think you probably know Zach. You know George.
I know him. Yeah.
And then a guitar player named Mark Ahola that doesn't live around here anymore. But so yeah, that's the only time I'd been out of the country, and those were really crazy and a bunch of crazy stories from those days. But
I was wondering if there was anything memorable that
I bet there had to have been. There's no way it was not.
Well, the one story I like to tell from my Canadian tour was the Throbbers. The first band I went up there with was really we were kind of like we were kind of just a hodgepodge band, but they wanted country up there, and we didn't know that. And we got up there and they didn't like us very well, then we were supposed to be, because they wanted country, and so we were really struggling trying to not get fired and stuff. And so we were playing this one gig and trying to come up with these country songs. And George, who's our good friend, he's blind. He's totally blind from early age. And so he was back behind the drums playing, and we were doing Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain. And I look back, and George is reading Braille off his bass drum, or off his tom drum, reading the words to Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain. I'll never forget that. And but yeah, so that was a good one. But yeah, there's some good stories from those days. But fortunately, the Norway trip was much more successful. I'll say that.
Excuse me. Well, that had to have been. I mean, I can't even imagine. How did you guys end up going? We're gonna go on a tour in Canada.
Well, yeah, that was way before, the networking with all the Facebooking and all the, internet and stuff. So it was actually just hearing of other players that had connections with these agents. There were these road agents back in the 80s. In fact, I was with a road band for quite some time, an American road band, after between those two Canadian tours. And you could actually just go out. The fun thing was you could kind of go out and just stay on the road if you wanted to. The American band, we played, holodomes and ramadas, top 40 stuff. A lot of the stuff that, like Brat Pack or something, 80s tribute bands are playing now. That's what we were playing, but it was top 40 at the time. Yeah, and so you could just kind of stay out and get on these road tours with these road agents, and pretty much just stay out on the road constantly. You can't really do that anymore. It all got, once DJs and karaoke kind of took the place of these traveling bands, because the places you would play were these places that didn't have a big, strong, you wouldn't play Champaign, for example, because there's so many great players and bands around, but you'd play, Minot, North Dakota, and Hattiesburg, Mississippi, and, these places that were out of the way that didn't have a local entertainment scene.
I find that
anyway, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think that's really fascinating, and the way that happened back then.
Yeah, it was a different time. It really was. Yeah, it's a time gone by.
Yeah. So I hear that your passion really is basketball.
Yeah, no, I do love me some basketball. Yes,
basketball and ping pong.
Yes, ping pong. I do love ping pong as well. Yes, Keith, when I was with the Keith Harden band, he used to call me the king of recreational activities. And I wore that crown with pride. Yes, because pool, darts. I used in my day as a good pool player, but not so much a bowler really. But yeah, basketball. I do love basketball, and still play some. And it's funny because the kids I'd play with, I'm playing with kids now that are like sons of my friends that I used to play with in school, and so we all had our little nicknames, and some of them dubbed me Blacktop Billy, because I'd play out on the blacktop all the time. And it's funny because even to this day, I'll run into people, and it's like worlds colliding, that people that know me from basketball is like, I didn't even know you were a musician. Somebody was talking about, black, and I said, that's Blacktop Billy. I didn't know he was a musician, so I'm in some sets, I'm more known for my basketball playing than being a musician, really.
That's sort of like Doc Shred. He's a cardiologist at Carl during the day, and then a
right
musician at night.
Yeah.
Which is,
they're like, I don't know. I knew he was a cardiologist. I didn't know he was a musician. Or he's a musician. I didn't know he was a cardiologist.
right. Yeah. So you'll run into people that, know you from one area of life, but not the other.
But not the
He was
other.
my cardiologist for a while.
I'm sorry, Zach, what?
He was my cardiologist for a while.
Oh, no kidding.
No, he's a great guy, man.
Yeah.
Doc is a great guy.
He is. He really is. Great musician, him and his wife, JD. They do a lot.
I'm glad they're out playing a lot and they're doing well. It's kind of high times for musicians. I know everybody talks about, some people bemoan, for the old days, but really, if you really dig around, you can keep pretty busy right now. And so, I think it's going pretty well, really. I mean, you can't play with a band every night of the week like the old days, but
Right.
you have your little duos or solos and other little niches you play. It's going pretty good, really.
It's picked back up. I think the main problem we have is more musicians than venues.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of musicians, that's
kind of a struggle. But I'm sorry, hang on. Okay, that's kind of a struggle, but it's working. I mean, everybody's getting gigs and they're working hard to get them. And
if you're willing to work really hard and then maybe do some traveling. The good thing I talk about living in Monticello. It's kind of cool because Monticello, I mean, you think, you should probably live in one of the little cities around here, but it's pretty well centralized. You got Champaign, it's only 20 minutes, and Urbana is only about 25, and then Danville's an hour, and then Decatur's a half hour, and then Springfield's an hour. It seems like everything's within an hour of Monticello.
Yeah, you are in a good spot because I see that you play at Bargenta.
I play to the west quite a bit, Decatur and Springfield and Auburn and places like that, and some places that so it's good to be able to branch out a little bit, because if Champaign, it's glutted with good players and bands and stuff, and you're right, it's more musicians than venues for sure.
That have musicians, definitely. And because I see, like, we follow you obviously, and you post your events. You're very good about getting events.
No, I appreciate what you guys do. I always appreciate what you guys do, Terry and Zach. That's done a lot for the music community, and I really appreciate it. And it's also a way that, I'll see, so-and-so's playing here. I've never heard of that place. So I'll try to, and there'll be another place I'll try to get, follow at each other's gigs and stuff, and try to find different places that we otherwise wouldn't know about, really. So.
Right. But that's what I was going to say about you. When you guys you create your events, and then a lot of places I'm like, well, where's this place at? And I'm like, oh, cool, they have live music, follow. And so you do that for us as well.
Very good.
New places that are that direction and out. But around Champaign-Urbana, it really does have a lot of great places to play live music.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah.
A lot more than, back in the day. And back in the day, it was centralized in Champaign, but now it's these surrounding areas that have just the most live music to offer. So
right.
Cool.
Yeah. And over the years, it's interesting how like wineries and breweries have become a real big thing over the last even 15 or 20 years at most, because before that, you never heard of a winery or a brewery in Illinois, really. And and so that's become a real big mainstay of musicians getting to play. I play a whole lot of those places, and I know a lot of the other players do too, breweries and wineries. And in fact, we're playing I wonder if it'll be a new thing too, dispensary type place too, so that may be the new winery and brewery sort of thing too. But
I love that. I love that you said that and brought that up, because that's a really good point. It's, we didn't hear about that before, but
No,
now
when I
having,
first played out at Alto Vineyards was one of the first wineries I ever played. And that was, 15, 20 years ago. And I thought, man, there's not going to be anybody out here in the country, nobody's going to just come out in the middle of nowhere, but, sure enough, people really like to go to these out of the way little wineries and breweries and stuff.
well,
So,
they do, and it works both ways with wineries and those type of venues having live music, because people that follow live music, or the particular musician in particular, when they see that musician's going to be, they're like, oh, I've never been there before. And so
yeah.
so it works for the venue, and it works for the musician both. When a venue
Yeah, I
has,
think you're right. Yeah.
when a venue has live music, I don't think they understand, but I think they get it finally when they begin to have live music. They realize how many more people they're reaching, because
Yeah, I'd like to hope so. Yeah, I'd like to hope that us musicians can gin up business for the clubs and breweries. That's so important. And so you're right. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right.
You musicians definitely do that for venues. So, it's definitely a win-win.
Yeah, I'd like to think so. I hope so.
So you have a KHB reunion coming up which is Keith Harden band. So
Yeah.
oh, and I also want to bring up, before we get to this reunion, because I want to talk about this reunion as our close. Let's talk about Zach's favorite band. Come on, Zach, what's the name?
Surreal Deal.
Oh yeah.
Actually, you were in the Mighty Pranksters for a while, weren't you?
I was an original member of the Mighty Pranksters. I was,
That's
yes.
what I thought.
But then when the Keith Harden band took off so well in the 90s, I had to drop out of the Mighty Pranksters, which was a shame. But, sometimes you can't do everything. But yeah, the original Mighty Pranksters was Jeff, Kerr, Grizz, Danny Deckard, and myself. We were a 4-piece band. And we played, quite a few gigs like that. And then they, of course, morphed into their greatest lineup, which was Jeff and Brian, the great Brian Wilkie on guitar, and then Andre, rest his soul. I wanted to mention poor Andre passed away, as we know, and great bass player. And I was fortunate enough, a lot of bass players, I was a bass player for many years, and a lot of bass players don't get to play together because, you usually have one bass in a band. But I was fortunate enough to fill in on guitar quite a few times with the Mighty Pranksters after Andre had joined, and I just wanted to mention what a great bass player he was to play with, being a guitar player playing with Andre. And I feel very sorry for Diana, his lovely wife and stuff. So wanted to put a mention out for Andre. And so, yeah, and then Danny Deckard was the drummer for many years with the Mighty Pranksters too. And then, and then the Surreal Deal kind of morphed out of after Mighty Pranksters were on the way out. Surreal Deal was, again, Josh Quirk, my old buddy, and Jeff and Jesse Brown and myself on bass. So, yeah, we had a good run.
I remember when you guys got started, actually, Jeff Kerr told me, he goes, I'm in a new band. We don't have a name yet, but we're playing at the office in Urbana. And it was every Tuesday or Wednesday?
Something like that. Yeah, I think it might have been every Tuesday.
It was like from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. And I started coming to those, and I very rarely missed one of those. And then
That's right. Yeah.
Then you moved to the Embassy. And
right. Yeah, we played those. And yeah, we had a nice run with the band. Yeah, Jeff actually came up with that name. Jeff was pretty good at coming up with names of bands, and he came up with Surreal Deal. And that band, I don't know if we have any more gigs on the books. We played our kind of official last gig, the November before COVID. And then when COVID struck, we didn't play again till we played a handful of gigs this last year and a half to, pretty good acclaim and pretty good. But we don't really have anything coming up. We weren't really moving ahead, so I think everybody's gone their own direction. But who knows? I mean, something might come up. I always kid and tell Zach he's been to more surreal deal
Real
gigs than some of the guys in the band. Because
This is
Josh had to
true.
miss a few gigs here and there, and we always appreciated you guys coming out. But
This
yeah,
is
that
true.
band was a good band and had a certain style that we played that the other bands around the area weren't playing. And I was getting to play my bass, which I love to play my bass, and that's why I'm looking forward to the Keith Harden band reunion. That band had a great run in the 90s, and then we were playing usually at least one reunion gig a year through the 2000s, but then Keith had some health issues, and then with the advent of COVID, this will be the first. We played exactly when we play on the 23rd of December at the Rose Bowl from 8 to 11. That will be the first time the band's played in 4 years. And then it'll be the first time. Yeah. And then it'll be the first time Andy's played with the band since the initial Blues Fest that I don't say this wrong, PCBS Blues Fest that you were a big part of, Zach, and Terry, I also, that you guys put on. And that was the last time that the original band has been together. So, and that was what, 2017 or?
Yeah.
Nah, but so yeah, it'll be the original band. We had a good run with that band. And like I say, if you, Terry shared it, I guess, if you go to, you can see on Keith's, and he shared it to mine, video of 1991, I think it was, when we were playing.
I have to see that video.
I was so skinny, man. And I think I kind of had a mullet. I think that's the first. It's the first video I think I've ever seen of myself at that young of age. There's some pictures out there, and I think there's a little video footage of this and that. But yeah, I was cracking up seeing the Doug Pugh recorded that, and so yeah.
I love that. I love that so much. That kind of thing I absolutely love. I love like the story of you, staying in your Suburban on the street while you were playing in the blues. And I love the way that your sister had those, few blues albums. And that's
they just stuck out. So
stuck out. That became your,
it became a real beacon.
Yeah, and that's what
I love that stuff.
Yeah, that's what makes the musician. It's that kind of history of paying their dues and learning and going through the rough times and the good times. I mean, you can look back at everything that you've done and the amazing people that you've got to play with, and especially locally you have played with some heavy hitters.
Yeah, there's some great players around here, and I've really been blessed to play with a lot of them. So yeah, I always appreciate that. Yeah,
you yourself are a heavy hitter, and that's what it is. You are so extremely talented. It's wonderful to go and see you and just watch you play and sing, and it's pretty.
Thank you. It's very kind.
Did either the Mighty Pranksters or the Surreal Deal open for Little Feat once?
That was Mighty Pranksters. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Wow. Yeah, I wasn't playing with them at that time, of course, but I know they did at least once. I think they opened up for 38 Special. They were saying one time before too. And no, they had a great run back in a little bit after the Harden band did. They were really popular though at from like the mid 90s to the early 2000s. And I played some great gigs with them. One of the best gigs I ever played was they went on a little tiny tour over and played Danny Decker, the drummer, was over around Bloomington, Indiana. And there's a cool club over there called the Bluebird. It was kind of like the Mabels of there. We played there. We opened up for the Jerry Garcia band, post Jerry Garcia, being passed away, but it was still his band. And then we followed that band up to Indianapolis and played one of the nicest club gigs I've ever played, called the Vogue. It's a big club, a big theater in Indianapolis, and that was kind of the Mighty Pranksters were trying to break through, and I was kind of disappointed because the agent said, you guys are too old, and it's like, man, and we were like 20 years younger back then too, you know, but it's like, man, too old to be a hippie band, you know? So, but, and the Jerry Garcia guys were all like 80 years old, you know, but I guess they were already established. So, but they
Was
thought we
Nicky
were cool.
Hopkins in that band then?
What's that?
Was Nicky Hopkins in that band then?
I don't know. I can't remember who was all in the
I
band.
know he was for a while.
Okay, yeah. I can't remember. It seems like I would have known if it was Nicky Hopkins in the band, but we didn't talk to him that much. It was funny because when we played the Bluebird in Indianapolis, they were kind of I'm sorry. Yeah, the tour manager was real gripey, and he Brian Wilkie and I were trying to change, and you know, they're backstage, and they kind of shoot us out of there. Not the musicians, but the tour agent was mad because there was a little club in Bloomington, Illinois called the Bluebird, and they'd driven all the way to Bloomington, Illinois, and thought that was a club they were supposed to be playing, but it was actually Bloomington, Indiana, which is way out of the way from Bloomington. You know, it's really hard to get to Bloomington, Indiana, too. You either have to weave around through the country, or you have to go all the way to Indianapolis and come way south. So they were almost late getting there, and they were all in a bad mood. But anyway, it was a fun time. We stayed at Danny's and watched the stars out on. And he lives out. I suppose he still does. Lives out in the country in Bloomington. But yeah, last time I saw Danny was at Grizz Fest. Grizz had one last big hurrah in 2014, and I think you were there, Grizz. I don't know if you were there, Terry, but it was a lot of fun. And
I remember that. Yeah, I remember that.
Pranksters did a reunion, and Surreal Deal played, and the Blues Deacons played, and that was a lot of fun. But
you know, that does not seem like it was 2014.
I know, it really doesn't.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
That is insane.
And every time I drive by Grizz's now, it's always kind of sad because that used to be our really holy temple of jamming. And I wrote a song about that was on Kristen John's album. What's she called? The Champaign-Urbana album. Tales to Tell, I think, was the album. And there was a song on there called Woodshedding that kind of documented our love for Grizz's old shed, because we used to play out there till the sun was rising and stuff, and a lot of good memories from there. A lot of great players came through there also.
Yeah, see, that's awesome. That's so awesome. Does he not live there anymore?
No, he moved away a few years ago, sold the old farm, and
he moved to Oblong or something like that.
Yeah, it's a strange name of a town. I didn't even know where it is. It's way off the beat.
Colfax.
Yeah, but yeah, so it's always kind of sad driving down Ridge Road to gigs, and we didn't jam out there as much as we used to, but it was always kind of comforting knowing it was there. But now, the old jam barn is into the past, you know. But a lot of good memories, though.
I dig Grizz. I just really dig him. He's just such a cool guy.
Yeah, I don't get to see Grizz very often. He came out in the last Surreal Deal gig. We played, Grizz came out and sat in with us, and that was great because he's been having some issues and stuff too. And but he was out and had a great time, and so yeah.
Darn it, I missed that one too.
That's right. You weren't there, Zach. Yeah, that's right. That's probably why we're not playing anymore. You stopped coming in.
Missed it, Zach. You weren't there.
You're the biggest fan. No, but hopefully we'll maybe play something down the line. But yeah, Grizz is always welcome. He comes out and sits in with the Blues Deacons from time to time too. So maybe we'll get him out and do something there too.
You have to keep us informed on that, because we definitely want to show up for that. We will definitely December 23rd.
Yeah, December 23rd. Keith's really pushing it on Facebook. What's that?
Keith's birthday.
Yeah, Keith's birthday. Yeah. My birthday's the day before. We always, our birthdays are right together. Mine's the 22nd. His is 23rd. So
perfect.
Yeah.
So the Keith Harden Band reunion will be December 23rd at the Rose Bowl. And on that note, we will close this out. We thank you so much for being on our podcast.
Thanks, Harry. Thanks, Zach. Don't forget the Blues Deacon CD. If you get a chance, pick one up, or it should be streaming anytime now.
I got one of those when you played with Lori Morvan band at Allerton.
Yeah. Right. We played we played the festival out at the park in Allerton, which is great for me because it's like my hometown stomping grounds. I know every square inch of Allerton, and so I always appreciate getting to play there.
Yeah, right in your own area. It's always good to do that. So wait,
Yeah.
if somebody wants to purchase a CD, can they only do that at like your gigs, or is there a way to contact you to get a hold of one of your CDs? Or
Yeah, you can get a hold of me through Facebook, and it should be all on Amazon and all that stuff soon. I've kind of drug my feet, I got really busy, and then we went to Europe and
oh, you
stuff, and
went to, yeah, you
now,
can.
so I'm making excuses, but it should be everything should be up and running soon. And but I'll definitely have them on the gigs. So if you come out and see
Okay.
the band,
But if somebody wants a tangible copy, they can get a hold of Billy Galt. I'll have his face
yes,
on this podcast. I'll have the link of the video that we were discussing about Keith Harden band back in 2014. I will have a link to that video and some other videos of just Billy and his band and music and all of that. We'll have it on here. So
yeah,
easy.
great.
Yeah, click on the link and you'll be able to be right there. So thank you so much. And it's been an absolute pleasure.